Greetings, everybody. This is Serpentine451, and welcome to another episode of Weeb Warriors. And joining me this week, as he always does, is my good friend Jordan. How you doing tonight, Jordan?
Hanging in there, Tony.
Alright, so, if you've noticed with these reviews, or if I've actually posted them, as this lazy human being that I am should, we are removing After Loss henceforth because, well, it hasn't caught our interest since episode 4, so we both decided that, well, it's off our review docket.
Yeah, we gave it a good college try, and since we did remove it, I know we spoke about it briefly in the last episode, but since we brought it up again, I would like to just recap the primary reason why I personally didn't find it interesting. It had a good concept on a high level, and I'm sure that its other media, I believe it's a video game, yes, portray it better,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
its execution in the anime is poor. The anime opens up with us jumping into the middle of its like signature event, Lost, and then there's a flash forward. We don't know what's going on or why we should care, and they don't do a good job of establishing why we should care throughout the first 3 episodes. It just seems like we're running around and all these things. And then they introduce almost a Deus Ex Machinima character or a set of characters who have have a backstory with the main protagonist, but don't actually delve into that backstory through flashbacks or even detailed accounts. We're just supposed to assume that, yes, they're friends or they have some sort of seedy past or what have you, which is really poor storytelling in the grand scheme of things and was very uninteresting to look at.
Yeah, it's just the lack of interest and the way that they kind of presented their story was the sole reason that I kind of dropped it as well. Even though I was really into it because of the concepts that they had presented, but the way they kind of executed it just soured that pot for me. But let's actually get to the shows that we are continuing. Oh, and by the way, since we both kind of neglected this, there's not going to be a One Punch Man review this week because we're both stupid enough to miss it before we actually started the review.
I definitely had to. I definitely had to catch up on a lot of anime. I was 3 episodes behind on Very Gone and 3 episodes behind on One Punch, and I had to eat, so I just ran out of time.
And I spent most of my day napping, so that's kind of what my whole situation was. But let's actually get to. Let's start with our first show, and I think we should start with. Well, since it's the most recent one that I watched. Let's start with Fairy Gone episode 6, Fellow Traveler.
Right, so Fairy Gone episode 6 picks up in typical Fairy Gone fashion, and they have there's rumor of another page of the Black Fairy Tome in the city that they are currently in. Now, just to jump back a little bit, the episode does begin by giving us a little bit more context into the Unification War and some of the events following. Thus, we also get to see sort of why it is that Ray Dawn is sort of being implicated by Veer as the man solely responsible for the death of her friends and loved ones. But we haven't actually gotten to that reveal. But you can see that there's some treasonous activities going on, and Ray Dawn always seems to float up to the top. And as we saw in previous flashbacks, Ray has some fairy which caused rusting and or petrification of some sort. So he's not a weak man.
Definitely. And for the greater portion of the episode, it's Carla and Marla that are teaming up to actually find an agent that actually has this particular page named Dice.
Mm-hmm.
And we get to see a little bit of Carla's backstory where she pretty much lost everything in the war and was rescued by
Director.
the director of Dorothea.
Mm-hmm.
And it was nice to see those two particular characters bond over kind of a shared backstory of sorts. And also how, when it comes to like agents and how conditioned they are to actually be trained to keep their mouths shut. I mean, this Dice dude really kept his mouth shut. He's like, it's almost like, we've tried everything. Maybe breaking his arms would be a good idea to make him talk. And when Free and Marla actually got back to working together, and there was also the one situation that Marla and Free had, which I think is the case, of a new model of artificial fairy that went berserk and tried to kill this one woman and her child.
Well, it definitely malfunctioned. I wouldn't call it berserk. It was the twitchiest, glitchiest, just most uncoordinated thing I had seen. You could definitely tell that the saboteur is using a control whistle, or that's what I'm going to call them. I don't really know what they're actually called.
Yeah.
That is aftermarket, or is taking advantage of some exploit, because the artificial fairy does not obey well.
No. Like somehow its frequency is counteracting the frequency of the person who's supposed to be controlling the three artificial fairies, but it fucked up with the one that had its malfunction go through.
Right, but if you would think that if it was a general thing, then all three of them would have been affected. But...
Right. It's just maybe the malfunction can only affect one at a time, maybe?
I'm thinking it was tampered with.
Right.
Is what my thinking is.
Yeah, I would assume that it would have been tampered with to cause some form of unrest with this new model and whatnot. I mean, there was one dude...
I don't think that was the only objective here. I definitely think that there's a bigger play in the wings.
Right. Because the two remaining dukes are essentially formulating a plan to cause some ruckus. I mean, the ending scene after the ED was the Duke talking to a military minister at this big banquet where the advisor, the minister says, well, I shouldn't be here for much longer, and the Duke's... It's not Ray Dawn, it's the other individual. And he's like, well, why do you have to say? And the minister's like, keep this between you and I, but I got word that one of my artificial fairies was tampered with, and I have to look into it. And he's like, well. And he had a sinister grin, because the way it was framed, it was mostly focused on his mouth, and it was shaped like a grin.
Yeah, he seems to be pleased by this.
Mm-hmm. So, these two dukes are planning something again, but I'm not too sure what that is exactly.
Care to make speculation?
Well, the one thing that can easily come to mind is to create maybe more unrest with the people and cause another war, which kind of makes sense in the grand scheme of things. Like a civil war of sorts, some form of conflict. But there's also another option of changing the political system.
You think it's a coup?
I think it's a coup. That's pretty much what I would assume would happen. I mean,
I think that it's a fairly reasonable thing to assume. I don't think it has it, which is interesting because when I first saw this, I thought the core argument or the core plot of the series would be about fairies, which On the surface, it appears to be. But if there's a political intrigue backstory, then it becomes a lot less about the fairies, and they simply become a mechanism in which people have been using to obtain power. As we saw with the creation of the fairy soldiers, this world doesn't actually value the fairies so much as long as beyond their utility.
Right. And from what I can gather from the opening scene, where each member of these five dukes, well, the three that got killed or gotten rid of, except for Raydon and the other individual, and the way they explained it is that the dukes, after the unification war, they had some semblance of power. I think one was executed.
Three of them are dead.
Yeah, three of them are dead, but the circumstances of their deaths were different in each case.
Yeah, but calling a spade, they were assassinated.
Essentially, yeah. But with people wanting this amount of political power and to basically stage a coup to cause more unrest within this unified nation and to actually create a new system of government would seem to be the case. But
yeah, I'm just waiting for them to betray each other because I don't think they're that deeply in cahoots that they would
oh yeah,
they're going to share power equally, right? That typically doesn't work out well.
I definitely agree with you there. It's like both of them have their own goals and ambitions, and depends on who has the bigger goal in mind can overshadow the other. So let's move on to the other shows. So, Jordan, which one do you want to review first? So what's on the docket?
So the next one on my queue is actually The Rising of the Shield Hero, episode 18, A Conspiracy Linked. So, in the previous episode, Philo gains her cowlick, which is a sign that she will ascend to the throne of the L'Oreal Queen.
Mm-hmm.
When I forget the other one's name.
Fitoria.
When Fitoria dies, steps down, it's hard to tell. Nonetheless, Fitoria then takes them to where she can send one of the other cardinal heroes so that our main boy Nafumi can go make up with them.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, this goes poorly.
Mm-hmm. Because the cardinal hero that Fitoria sensed that was close by was Moteyasu.
Yeah, and lo and behold, Moteyasu is being manipulated once again by mine.
And once again, he just believes her story wholesale that he wanted to avenge the death of Itsuki and Rin because now Fumi was the one that killed them.
Which was a lie, as were all things. But then, here comes the twist. Suddenly, Philo tells Nafumi that they need to cover themselves in shields, as many shields as possible.
Yeah.
And then the fucking sky explodes.
Yeah.
A reckoning of just terrible proportions comes.
Mm-hmm. This is because the Church of the Three Heroes' Pope decided to spin the story like, oh, the cardinal hero, the cardinal spear hero, oh, he and his party are just shambling corpses that were killed by the shield hero and just are moving around now. So we had to exorcise their souls in the name of the Lord and get rid of the devil of the shield.
Yeah.
And he decided, oh, the monarchy ain't doing shit. And these heroes were just causing more problems for what they're worth. So we decided we're gonna, control the country and make it a theocracy. and they already got soldiers in their pocket. And so he was acting like, oh yeah, stuff's gonna go my way. It's all coming up aces. Coming up Millhouse for me. Even using a great relic to really drive home that point. Well, still, we're inching closer and closer to that one thing I've been looking for. Well, that everyone's been looking for. Well, me.
Just the one.
Oh, there's more things to look forward to. Like the whole island thing, but I am looking forward to one moment in particular to be animated. And it's going to be fucking beautiful. Like I know it will be. But I would say with this episode in particular, the fight between Naofumi's party and Moteyasu's party was actually very enjoyable. Because Naofumi, for the most part, only just deflected hits from Moteyasu's spear. And it's mostly Moteyasu acting like the hero complex person that he is.
Yeah, he definitely has a savior complex. He's easily manipulated, but he's also not smart. Like, how many times can you be wrong on based on the same things and still not even attempt to figure it out?
Well,
like, I know there's like being loyal to your friends is a nice thing, whatever, but my dude doesn't think at all.
Well, one part of him is thinking, and that's his dong. That's usually the thing that does most of his thinking for him.
We say that, but is he even getting any? I'm not so sure.
I mean, this was a dude in source material that pretty much died by just being the biggest man whore on the planet. Still, I would say that this episode was a very good one in terms of the consistent quality of Shield Hero. Wouldn't you agree, Jordan?
Yeah.
So, what's next on the docket?
Next on the docket is Why the Hell Are You Here, Teacher? Episode 6, Period 6. Deals with our own hungry-eyed character. Ooh, Jesus, what the hell is his name?
Suzuki.
Yes, I don't know any. I can't even give my summary because I didn't know none of their names. Jody, give the summary.
So basically, this whole episode focuses on the art teacher, which her name is so long that I can't even remember it, so I will refer to her as art teacher. Basically going through just the motions with Suzuki, who is the big fellow student and the kohai to this previous student. So in this, what happens here in particular is that Suzuki is at a McDonald's ripoff restaurant getting food for his younger siblings, which are these lucky
Mayu Matsuzaki.
Masazaki, yeah. And both of them run into each other at this store, and they're getting Lucky Meals, but she's getting a Lucky Meal toy for herself because she likes small, cute things.
Mm-hmm.
And when the little siblings came down to grab their toys, they're like, in the rain, mind you. One of them gets upset. The little sister got upset because she didn't get a panda toy. But what she got was a fish toy.
Yep.
And So, Matsuzaki uh, gave up her panda toy to the little sister, and the fish just flew into her shirt, in between her chest,
Oh
and,
boy.
well, lewd things happen.
You know, as someone said in the comments on this episode, orgasmic umbrella.
Yeah, true. Yet, because in order to protect everyone from, like, the rain or whatnot, or from a vehicle, uh, just. they decided to have a moment where, oh, let's try shielding everyone from this big vehicle and not suffer anything by shoving an umbrella straight up the someone's private area. Oh, sweet Jesus, Jordan. Thank you, Jordan. I needed that.
Everyone did. Everyone did. But honestly, that's all that I have to. Well, I mean, there was another incident. So she gets drunk with the Jesus. I can't even give any summaries because I don't know their names. She gets drunk with Kana, Kojima, or
Yeah.
as we commonly refer to her as the demon.
Yep.
And your boy Ichiro, or Sato, comes and picks her up and takes her home.
Mm-hmm.
While I'm just gonna call them art teacher. While the art teacher is sulking alone, she passes out and is picked up by our boy.
Suzuki.
She flashes back to the first time when she met him, in which case she was going to take a teaching examination and was running late. She fell and broke her shoe. Rin was helping his father with some construction work and decided that he would run her to her test so that she would be on time. Obviously, while on his back, her bra came undone. Her breast became agitated by rubbing against his back as he ran. There were some stairs, and as always, she climaxed again.
Yep, I think that just as a general rule of thumb with this girl in particular, she is just, let's just say, easily stimulated.
He really is.
Well, that's essentially what happened in this particular episode. I mean, it's lewd as fuck. This entire show is lewd as fuck. But in a way, that's
Yeah.
kind of the beauty of it.
I mean, I feel like for anyone that's complaining that it's like a hentai, they should really pay attention to the genre that it belongs to, because it is in fact an erotic comedy. I don't know what else you really expected from it.
Yeah, I don't. There's a lot of things that I look at people and I'm thinking, expect what you get here, man. I mean, it's nothing different compared to other shows in the grand scheme of things. Really. I mean, all these scenes are meant to be funny. They're meant to be hilarious, and they just so happen to be a bit lewd. But what's next on the docket here, Jordan?
Alright, moving on. The next on the list is We Never Learn, Episode 6, Thus X Geniuses Never Learn. And it's really more about Naruki. Well, it's about... I'm not doing hot on these names today. Tell me, take it over.
The episode starts with Miss Kirisu and Naruyuki basically having a meeting where she's like, so, I just witnessed you and Otaga actually kissing at one point. And he's like, Let me explain. I was trying to look for her in the rain, and then this becomes like this whole situation becomes a comedy of errors, which leads to Fumino saying, "I don't worry about the sexual like illicit sexual acts. I told him that he could touch my stomach in the library. It's all good. He even saw me in my underwear. It's all good. It's not his fault." And Kurisu basically saying, "Okay, thank you, Furuhashi-san. You could just go, just leave." And then Rizu comes in like, "Hey, this is what happens. Everything was an accident. You don't have to worry about it. There's no lewd stuff happening." Well, lewd stuff did happen, but it was all an accident. And then Uruka comes in after Ritsu, basically saying, it wasn't his fault that he had to pin me down in the pool area to get me to listen. It's not his fault. It was an accident." And Kirisu, who is the former tutor to Fumino and Rizu, was basically saying, "Oh boy, you fucked up. You done fucked up." But these girls are really sticking up for you. Alrighty then. You can continue tutoring them. Good work. But she would go on the stipulation that saying, the girls are wasting their time and their potential talents in their respective fields going to the universities they wanted to go to because she did so in her past. And so she wants to make sure that those with talent actually move up in the world. So they didn't have to suffer anything like she did. And then the next half of the episode basically surrounds a big old rumor because everyone spread the word that Nariyuki kissed a girl. And it snowballed into him getting a girlfriend, which Uruka got really, really upset over. To the point where she and Noriyuki basically, well, she tried to look more attractive with a shorter skirt, a few buttons unbuttoned to show a little bit of more skin, which they both end up going to a shrine at some point. And one of the funnier scenes is when she is pretending to be asleep, she gets bombarded by someone petting her on the top of her head and then just licking her everywhere, which turns out to be just a group of cats. And Nariyuki is just petting one cat just far away, giving her space. Because he assumes that since she likes a guy, he doesn't want to, like, cause her trouble because he got this particular form of advice from, he misinterpreted advice from
Fumino. I was going to say, I think he grossly misinterpreted the advice that he given.
Yeah, Fumino gave him advice which he grossly misinterpreted. Because he thought, well, I should treat them like girls, right? So I should keep my distance and let them think about things. Which, bro, you're their tutor. How the fuck are you supposed to give them their space? How the fuck are you supposed to give them space?
But it's just like, here's that they're women, so decide, you know what? She's right. Women don't want to be interacted with, right? That's the quality of being a woman. Yeah. I should avoid them.
Oh yeah, that shit was just dumb. And then it's just Fumino kind of deciding after seeing Rizu and Uruka basically getting low scores, which was the whole catalyst of like the extra tutoring for Uruka's whole grand action, It's like, oh, these two have feelings for Narayuki. Alrighty, but I don't know who to cheer for. Well, shit. I mean, I feel bad for Fumino in that situation. Like, she really likes these two as her friends, but she doesn't know which one to root for, and she can't really root for both because one and the other would be sad. But all in all, a very solid episode from this show. Still, very solid. What's next on the docket, Jordan?
Next on the docket is Wise Man's Grandchild, episode 5. Why is there no title for episode 5? What is this? What is it, Tony? You know I can't remember names. Just go ahead and start up so I can go to the Wikipedia page and get all the information.
Alright, so episode 5, we essentially start the episode where everyone in the group except for a few characters, like one in particular.
Real quick, episode 5, a pioneering new hero.
Right. Thank you, Jordan. So everyone is going down to Beanworks to basically request, well, Shin's going to request a new sword through them. And since Mark is an apprentice to the blacksmith, and the blacksmith being his father,
yep,
it would be an easier time to actually get that to get this weapon made. So it's August, his two attendants, Shin, Sicilian, Maria, and I think that's it. But Tony, another character in the study group, wanted to come, but he couldn't. So when they actually got there to meet up with Mark and Olivia, the girls pretty much did their own thing while Shin and the guys pretty much talked to the main blacksmith of Beanworks.
Yeah, very typical division of genders. The ladies go and get food or something to that effect while the men deal with weaponry.
No, essentially they were having... the girls wanted to basically explore Olivia and Mark's relationship and prod poor Olivia for information, whereas the dudes go in to get a weapon forged. And the funny thing is that the beginning of the episode had had Granny basically ask the question, what's the relationship between my grandson and Sicilian to ask Maria, do you know the relationship between these two? And Marlo's like, what? And Maria's like, well, the two of them seem to be into each other, but I don't think that they're emotionally ready to explain their feelings. Because Sicilian was asked out so many times that she would just ride them off and, like, pass them off. But she's really into him, and she doesn't even realize it yet. Which is really evident when after they got the design ordered out, Shin was like, hey, Sicilian, want me to get you something? After learning that the top 2 floors of the workshop has housewares and accessories, he decided, hey, Sicilian, what would you like for an accessory? And she gets all flustered and it's all jittery. And he's like, well, I want to get you an accessory so I can enchant it with defensive magic. And then she gets this defeated look on her face, and everyone's like, yo, what the fuck, man? Why would you hurt her like
that? Women.
And he's
Yeah,
like,
build her up just to knock her down. That's dirty.
yeah, just so dirty. And he's like, what the fuck? Why? I don't know what's going on. Did I say something wrong again? He ends up getting her a ring anyway.
He does.
And she looked so happy to actually receive the ring, even though it still got the defensive enchantments regardless.
You said still got, like that wasn't useful.
I mean,
My favorite part was when the guys were posing for their like defensive rings, and he said, "But I'm not getting them for the men," and they just looked so hurt. They're like, "What do you mean you're not getting them for the men?"
oh yeah, that shit was so funny. Oh, and then
Was no good.
oh, that was funny. That was, and some of the funnier things was like, basically, this episode also had Shin receiving his medal for his acts of bravery in the previous episodes, which then leads to people bombarding his house and him using his gate magic and pretty much running into, of course, one of the big breasted female characters. Because that needs to happen, you know?
Oh, of course. Is there ever is it even an anime if it doesn't have a large-breasted woman in it? I don't
I mean,
think so.
we get two in this one, so.
Right?
But still.
Actually, that's one of the weird things that I've noticed about the artwork. Their breast sizes fluctuate.
Yeah, that's like very weird. I don't understand why.
Like, I probably wouldn't have noticed if not for the fluctuation.
Yeah, true. But the rest of the episode basically shows Shin really putting everyone through their paces to really test their like sensing, their magical prowess and whatnot. And and everyone got to sense his magical potential, and they were like fucking scared of just how powerful Shin is and how much of a monster he is magically. And they're like, what the fuck? Which leads to a funny scene with the unstable magical girl, as she wants to be calling herself now. It's the brunette girl with glasses. She tried testing out her magical potential and just really amping up her spells at her own house and just singed her own face and hair.
I'm sorry, say that again, Tony?
The scene where after showing off his magical potential and whatnot, and giving them the lessons behind it, like the way
no,
Shin.
that scene was just plain frightening. Where my dude was like, "Would you like to see a little bit of the magic that I can control?" And then the world started to shake and became dark. I was like, "What kind of dark ass mana is this?"
Yeah, everyone was so scared. So then, the most diligent member of the study group really took Shin's words to heart and really practiced with what he was saying. I mean, this girl just ate every word that he was saying, which led to everyone coming through the gate because apparently the townspeople were in front of the academy.
Yeah, I mean, he did get an award and recognition by the king, so everyone's all up in his shit all of a sudden. He's the latest buzz. It'll pass, but for the moment, it looks like he'll be using the gift to travel to and from, which I'm not sure is the best of all options, given how wildly not experimental, but it's not within the paradigm of the current world, right? Like, it's well beyond what people are capable of rationally understanding, which I think is an interesting thing that a lot of people have failed to grasp in the comments that I've been reading about how Shin seems to be stupid relative to, having lived an entirely different life in another world. But everything about his, like, character development and arc shows that he is in fact pulling information from his previous life and using it in this one. That's why his magic is so powerful.
Mm-hmm. And from what I can see here, he really uses his previous life to full effectiveness, how he really can conceptualize magic on a different scale compared to the man who raised him in this new world. I mean, Merlin decided to put forward his best foot forward to understand how to use Gate. We should at least give Merlin that credit. Because at least...
And I do. I was just saying, I was simply speaking to the dissenters.
Well, Crunchyroll's comments are much like YouTube comments. You get a few quality ones, the rest are just flame wars. But anywho, what's next on the docket, Jordan?
That's it.
That's it? Oh, yeah. I feel like we're... Did we get everything?
But no, that's it. That's everything, because we're not doing One Punch.
Oh, yeah, that's right. But I think we're not going to have a soapbox discussion this time around. Simply put, I couldn't think of anything interesting to say here. Personally, I think I kind of ran the gambit of, well, the pure nonsense that I could pull out of my butt. But what I can say is that...
Well, I did have a question. I did have a soapbox discussion we can have if you're up for it.
All right, I'm up for it.
On something that I just thought of coming out of Rising of the Shield Hero. So Rising of the Shield Hero, as it's become apparent to the audience now, so we can talk about it, because, me and you have obviously read the source material. Religion is painted as the antagonist, which is a popular enough trope in the modern time as people become increasingly disenchanted with organized religion.
Right.
In your experience, who has done religion, for good or bad, the best in anime?
Well, that's an interesting question when it comes to, the way I kind of see it is that since Japan's view on religion is, well, especially Christianity, since they kind of view it as kind of like how we kind of experience world mythologies, is very different. They kind of treat it like interesting stories and source material to play with. And this was due to, like, the history of Christianity in Japan. But the one thing that I can say that I really enjoyed conceptually is High School DxD did something along the lines of all world religions and mythologies take place in the same world, and they have their own mini factions against each other, which I kind of like that idea. I like the idea of inclusivity when it comes to different religious beliefs. Although, there's a line that people shouldn't really cross, typically. One thing that I can always say that admittedly is very funny to me is well, I never there has been an anime in my recent memory that really that portrayed religion as a negative force, but I do like how they would interpret things differently. Like one my favorite anime of all time is Destiny of the Shrine Maiden, which is basically an interpretation of the myth of Yamato no Orochi, but with lesbians and giant robots. It's just maybe it's the execution, or I just turned my brain off with the whole religious implications.
Maybe. I mean, given the series, it very well may be the correct response. For me, one of the series that there are two series that come to mind immediately, and the first of them is Trinity Seven, where the Catholic Church has been tasked with ensuring that humanity does not fall to the vampires. And in this series, it is a sort of, I don't know, almost loosely medieval sci-fi series where hyper advanced technology has led to the destruction of a large portions of the world, and it's just a great series in my personal opinion. But then again, I do have the nostalgia filter of it coming on late night on Adult Swim Tsunami.
Mm-hmm.
So you take that with a grain of salt.
Right.
And then the other one has to be Capione, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
the amount of, like, I mean, it's not necessarily deep research that went into each of the gods, but it's not superficial either, right? They went really into the history of each of the gods and used the myths that surround not just the god that they're facing, but the history of the god and their reinterpretations and the things that they're associated with to, well, kill them.
Mm-hmm. And I really liked that too. It's probably one of my favorite harem anime by far. But I like the way they handled things there too. I think for me, it's always how they use the religious, in air quote, source material in order to present their story. That's how I kind of interpret it, really. And I've never seen it. I've never seen a show that interpreted religion poorly as of yet in my recent memory. But I'm sure it's different for you, though.
Well, oftentimes people avoid treading into the bad interpretation of religion. Now, I mean, don't get me wrong, there are plenty of series where, like, the priests are evil, or they're corrupt, or there's, like, a, like, hidden, but not necessarily overt abuse of children in various aspects, right? But those are all true to form. The organized religion has these people in it. I mean, it's not the sum total of everyone in it, but they do exist.
Right. And
then obviously you have more like cult groups than you can count on one hand, right? There's a damn cultist in every real sci-fi anime, or not sci-fi, but every like high fantasy series ever, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. And now that I think about it, Hellsing and Fate, like the Fate series or the Nasuverse as a whole, really interpret religion in a different way as well. Like if you look at Hellsing and you see the things that the church has done in that series, you look at that and I'm like, the fuck? And it's kind of similar to what the Nasuverse's interpretation of the Catholic Church. Basically, in the Nasuverse, the the priests there, like, they have a section of them that are trained killers that get rid of dead apostles, which are essentially vampires. And it's fucking hard to kill a vampire.
Yes, it is. Well, I mean, it depends on the universe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we should definitely talk about the best ways to do vampires and other supernatural creatures for another soapbox.
Oh,
But
I can
yes,
definitely agree with you there, because there's a lot that could be said about how to interpret uh, supernatural creatures in anime. Whether it is
right,
from.
and you definitely get the whole spectrum. I'm pretty sure we're thinking about the same series, but we'll go ahead and call it here.
Right, so catch us next time when we review these episodes, and hopefully we will get a One Punch review. But since you kind of missed out on actually giving your thoughts on the previous episodes on One Punch Man, Jordan, well, up until this one, why don't you give
Yeah.
your final thoughts on those?
Right. So I've been gone for 2 weeks now, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be episode 4 and episode 5. And in episode 4 and 5, what we have in no particular order is Saitama impersonating Chiranko to enter into the fighting tournament, where he encounters his previous senpai and where he encounters his previous senpai who has challenged him to a battle to find out who is the best student of their previous dojo. We get a flashback into Garo's life that then gives us a little insight into as to why he has become the way he has become. And a whole slew of monsters are starting to appear all over the place and attacking Hero Association executive members, while of course Garo is trying to hunt down the S-rank heroes. In episode 5, we get to see him fight Metal Bat, who is just great.
Yeah.
Metal Bat is amazing. And I was not aware of what his power was until this episode.
Yeah.
It is a broken ability. And it was just great. Honestly, I would never want to face Battle Bat ever.
No.
Just ever.
Yeah, this man.
The fact that he's not in the top 10 makes me concerns me deeply.
Yeah, showing him. They need to show this man some mad respect. I mean, this was a dude that pretty much took on a fucking giant centipede monster.
I mean, but he's ranked 15. It just goes to show how wrong the other ones are, except King.
Right, except King.
Yep, except King. Also, can we talk about how much cooler I think he is without the pompadour?
Right, yeah. Yeah. And also, I find it funny, like, did you laugh too when his little sister came in, like, there is no fighting when I'm around?
Yo, she didn't give a fuck. She was ready. She's like, go ahead, do it. Kill me. Do it. Do it.
And Gar was like, nah, I ain't gonna do it.
But yeah, as I look into his Wikipedia page, they call his strength ever growing. And that's a,
Lord help me. Oh my god. That's just great. Yep.
just goes to show you, S rank is not a joke unless you're king.
Unless you're king, yep. Unless you're king and you're a complete joke.
mean, it just bothers me that Metal Bat is ranked 14 and King is somehow ranked 7. Like, what?
Uh, I don't know, word of mouth. But we'll end it here, so we'll see you guys next time.